Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Vegan View. Today is a very exciting episode. We have a very special guest that we have been dying to get on the show. We have Miss Amanda Sevilla. She is a registered dietitian, a content creator, and a soul purpose coach. And I cannot wait to pick your brain. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So for people who don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, and what led you to veganism?
Oh my gosh, such a big question.
Yes.
Like, do you want the 2-hour conversation or like the 10-minute?
Happy medium.
Okay. So because we mostly talk about veganism, and that's how we all kind of met each other, and that's how we got into the same circle. Mm-hmm. I started off, I would say, in this vegan world because I am like a content creator. Mm-hmm. I was just a college student and I was very curious about diets, and I saw this one girl on YouTube eat like a lot of bananas and I was like, that's really dumb. I'm gonna try it.
I'm gonna try it. You were sucked in.
I was like, I think you're wrong. Because at the time I was also planning on being a doctor. Yeah. So I was like, as a future medical professional, I think that this needs to be experimented and proved wrong. Yeah. Because like, you know,
research.
For science.
Yes, for science.
And then little did I know that I actually had like probably a very like heavy carb deficiency, because I started eating that much fruit and like that many carbs, and I was like, oh my God, I can study so much better. Like I can actually run further. I can actually exercise better. What is going on? So then I did more research, and like you said, I was kind of sucked into it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't continue living life the way that I lived, knowing what I know, especially for the environment and for ethics and the animals. And then again, as a medical professional or future medical professional, I learned about how eating a plant-based diet can like reverse, halt symptoms of heart disease, diabetes, and hypertension. And these are all things that like my Filipino family, I have a Filipino background, like they all have some sort of high cholesterol, heart disease, like hypertension, diabetes. And I just thought that that was something that you get when you get older. Like, okay, I saw all my aunts and uncles kind of pop pills, time to take my metformin, or like, oh, I can't eat bananas because it's too much sugar. And I was just like, okay, I guess this is this thing that we get when we get older. But when I learned about veganism, I realized, wow, there's more to this than just accepting your fate. Like we can actually be proactive in these things. And again, like I wanted to be a doctor and I wanted to make sure I knew about nutrition. So I changed my major to nutrition. I still stayed vegan, obviously. And then in this process, like nobody around me was vegan. And I knew that there were people on social media, if I knew who Freely the banana girl was, like I'm not gonna hide her name, thank you for bringing me here. Yeah. Although after a while I kind of fell off and I was like, I think I do want to eat oil. Like, I love oil. Yeah. A good pad thai, like I need that. Yes. It's not the same.
Yes.
So I made a social media account and honestly just posted everything that I ate like 3 times a day and like followed people. And it was like 2015, 2016, that was a time for social media to just boom. It was like so easy for organic growth. Mm-hmm. And I met so many amazing people in the vegan community, and I just kept going through this journey of like learning myself. And long story short, veganism was the kind of gateway to me opening up to see that we as humans and as sentient beings and animals and just living things in this world are all one. And so that spirituality started coming in a lot stronger. And I did a lot of self-growth and self-love during like my early 20s, like those foundational years. And through my platform, I've just been sharing like little bits and pieces of me. I felt like at some point I couldn't only talk about food, and I wanted to talk about the things like around food and the things that that matter, because food is only one aspect of health. There's like community, self-love and respect, and like that spirituality piece, and of course sleep and exercise and all that stuff. But it all comes from the mind and from our heart, and these are the things that I love to talk about on my platform today. So that's like the short version.
Oh, I love it so much.
I love that.
Thank you.
And I just have to say, your skin is stunning.
I
know.
Like, perfect skin.
Her skin, beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, gorgeous.
She knows what she's doing.
Yeah, she knows what she's talking about. The proof is in the pudding.
It's not hydration. This is not coffee.
Water. Cheers to that.
Thank you. But also genes. Like,
Yeah.
eating healthy and exercising, sleeping well, and like keeping stress down are very important. But I do really think that a big part of it is genes. Like, my mom is not the picture of health, but her skin is great. And I'm not gonna lie about that.
Right. I think it's so important. Like we've mentioned it before that veganism is not a cure-all for everything. Of course, and I would love to know more about like food and how that does like affect somebody's health. Like, how important is diet? You being a registered dietitian, like how important is that in somebody's health journey?
I think it's important to an extent, right? Because there's always like this end where people are just eating French fries and burgers, or like eating one meal a day and like smoking cigarettes. And then there's this end where people are like scared to eat anything else. And so all the stress that this person would have put in their body is now like mental stress in this person, if that makes sense. I'm very much like, I need you guys to see the diagrams.
Yes.
So food is important, obviously. Like, all of our tissues, all of our cells are made up of the things that we eat. And so we want these things to be broken down well, assimilated, and like reformed into healthy components of our bodies. But if we are also stressed out about the food choices that we make, then that just takes away from like the fun part of it. So like, food is important, I would say like 80% of the time. And then there's that 20% where if you can just like let loose and have fun and enjoy what you're eating, like that's also important.
Right.
That's what I think is like health, when you can balance all these things and not sweat like, I'm gonna eat some candy today, or I'm gonna eat some French fries. Like, we're not gonna die if we eat unhealthy just a little bit, or like even once a day.
Right.
Yeah.
And you subscribe to intuitive eating, I know. And for people who maybe are watching this and are like, I have no idea what intuitive eating is, can you explain what that is and like how you came to that approach?
Yes, totally. So intuitive eating is a self-care framework. It's not only about food, and it's based off of 10 guiding principles that allow a person to kind of learn more about themselves so that they can make an intuitive decision on what they want to eat. So it combines like internal wisdom, right? Like, okay, eating a family-sized bag of potato chips did not feel good yesterday. That's internal wisdom. And then it also combines external wisdom of like, the USDA food guidelines recommend that I eat 3 to 4 servings of fruit a day. And we take both of these things and bring it together so that we can make a good decision. So it's like, maybe eating a little bit of potato chips would be good, right? Because yesterday it didn't feel good.
Right.
And then eating some fruit would also feel good, because we know that from that external wisdom point. And then there's always that piece of awareness, of mindfulness in the body. And that's what I love about it, is that there's no necessarily rules to it. Yes, there are 10 principles, but it's like just guidelines. And so really quickly, like, I'm not going to name them all, but just so that you guys have a good understanding of it, some of the principles are like to reject the diet mentality, because we can't truly listen to our internal bodies if we're constantly listening to like, you need to be slim thick, you need to have like a big booty, like you need to have small arms and like a flat stomach. It's hard to really listen to your body when we're constantly thinking like, oh man, maybe I should change according to the external. And then there's listening to your hunger and fullness, exercising or just moving your body to feel good. And then what else? Finding the satisfaction factor. You know how like when you eat food and it doesn't have something crunchy, and you're like, maybe if I had something crunchy, like I'll feel great. Or sometimes it's even sensory, where it's like the satisfaction factor can be eating with other people or playing some really relaxing music to really make that meal rounded out. And so those are some of the tenets of intuitive eating that I really love, because it just puts us in the driver's seat of what we're doing. I think a lot of people get into trouble, meaning they're kind of separated from their choices because they're not in the driver's seat. They put like an influencer in the driver's seat, or like Noom in the driver's seat, and not really are able to make their decisions. And I'm all about autonomy.
Yes.
I'm an air sign, so I just like love having that freedom, but like, you know, some guidelines. And the way I came across intuitive eating was actually already as a dietitian. So for a little bit of background, I had an eating disorder in high school, and I think that's what got me started on like being interested in nutrition. And I went through like recovery. I actually went into a clinic for it, and I saw like therapists and dietitians long term, but they never really taught me about intuitive eating. And when I was kind of shifting out of like that high raw, super high fruit way of eating with like veganism, I kept hearing about like, oh, just eat your fat and protein intuitively. And I was like, what does that even mean? So intuitively, I just did that, but I learned that there were actual books and resources. So there is a book, and it's trademarked. So it's intuitive eating is a framework that's trademarked by 2 dietitians. And they came up with this whole system. So I read the book and I was like, oh my God, like I wish that I learned this when I was going through my recovery, because it goes into the depths of like behavioral science as well. My therapists and the dietitians never asked me like how my parents acted around food. So for me, a big thing was like, I always finished my plate of food, and I didn't think that it was abnormal until I realized like, I actually don't have to finish it. But my parents are immigrants, so they told me that if I didn't finish my food, like a child in a third world country would fall over and probably die of starvation. So I was like traumatized, like I have to finish everything. And
even if you don't feel like it, you know?
Exactly, even if I don't feel like it, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm disrespecting like whoever made the food, whoever bought the food for me. So that's what I grew up with. But when I learned about intuitive eating, I was like, oh wait, it's actually like the way my parents acted too that influenced the way that I think about food. And so these are some things that I incorporate into my own counseling now, as I ask them like, where does that belief come from? Because that was never asked to me. Another example is like, I never heard my mother say anything nice about her body. And that, like, I guess I internalized that because for a long time, I've worked a lot on myself now. So now I'm like hyping myself up all the time. Like I just stand in the mirror, I'm like, you're great. But before I did that work, it was so hard for me to say nice things to myself. And that's a big part of intuitive eating, is respecting your body. We don't have to love our body, but like really respecting it for what it is. And I never had role models like that. And that's, I think, another big reason what like drew me to intuitive eating. And like, I'm just a natural teacher, so obviously I want to share that with other people as well.
I love that so much, because I feel like a lot of times, because there is so much content out there around food and around what we should be eating, and you know, you mentioned like following influencers and eating what they eat, and like there is such danger in that, you know, like it's one thing to take inspiration from people's meals, and it's another thing to like watch somebody's what I eat in a day that's telling you this is what I eat in a day to look like this, and then like following that and expecting the same results when like your body is different from that person's body, and like you may need different things than they need, and like that's you know, something that I feel like a lot of people don't think about. So I love that you mentioned that, and just how like intuitive, that's what's appealing to me about intuitive eating, is just that like it's listening to yourself and like tuning more into you, and like have the potato chips if you want the potato chips, just don't eat the whole bag till you feel sick, you know,
because that ends up not being intuitive. That's like self-sabotage. That's like people who start eating out of like emotional tendencies will do that, and then they will feel like crap. And a lot of my clients will say like, well, I just honestly feel like I deserve that. And so there's like a layer way deeper that needs to be addressed, and that's what's interesting to me. It's like, yes, we know about nutrition. Like you can Google what are the like highest sources of vitamins and minerals in foods. Like Google is literally like, it can teach us anything, right? But to actually peel back the layers of what holds us back from really like serving ourselves as caretakers is not so easily found on Google.
Wow.
Honestly, I'm like,
Yeah, I'm just taking
two
it
are just
all
like,
I
in.
know I'm taking it all in.
Taking it all
I'm
in.
just like realizing I have some internal work I have to do.
No,
Well,
really.
that's okay.
Yeah, for people who are interested in intuitive eating, I've always said, like, I've never, like, looked into intuitive eating, but I do feel like I just naturally kind of subscribe to that myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't restrict, I eat the dessert if I want to eat the dessert. And, like, yeah, if I eat a ton of junk food one day, I know that it's not going to feel great, and I'm probably going to, like, eat something that makes me feel a little bit better the next day.
Exactly.
And, like, that doesn't mean I'm not going to have anything junky the next day. If I want it, I'll still have it. I'm not going to punish myself.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's just always kind of been, like, a natural thing for me, I feel like, because I was we all grew up in the same era, so we all had the 90s magazines and the mom shame talk. Like, I relate to that so much too.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people probably do that are our age. I mean, it was just, we grew up in the Kate Moss era, and
Oh my
where
God.
Jessica
I know.
Simpson was
Twiggy.
overweight. Yeah, Twiggy, and like Jessica Simpson was overweight when she like looked amazing. Like, but the media tore her apart for that. So it's like we grew up in that, and that's now like what we think. And I feel like that was so unappealing. And then doing crash diets and realizing how crappy you feel afterwards, like you just kind of look for something a little more freeing. So for people who want to do intuitive eating, like where should they start?
I think it starts with really evaluating how much trust you have in yourself. I love the way that you described it for you, because it really sounds like you trust your body and like you trust yourself, and you've experimented enough to know, like, okay, well, if I eat what I want to eat, I actually won't explode.
Yeah.
I actually will feel fine. And if I go to a vegan fest and try everything, I might actually feel like eating a salad and like really fresh food the next day.
Yeah.
You've experienced that.
Yes.
Right? Like, so it's a lot about, evaluating how much trust you have with yourself. I always tell people when we start anything, intuitive eating vegan, it's really about like the internal work first before doing anything else. Also understanding, why do you want to intuitively eat? What does your life look like right now? How is the way that you're eating, the way that you're treating food, the way that you're treating your body really holding you back? Holding on to that why really helps us go forward. And the next thing is, I'm a reader, so if you are a reader, if you like audiobooks, maybe listening to the book Intuitive Eating by Evelyn Tribble and Elise Resch would be wonderful. And you can just like Amazon or Google that, like Intuitive Eating, that's the title. It's like these two girls on the cover. So reading that would also be very, very helpful. But also just experimenting, like eat a cookie today and see how that feels. Like try something that is usually uncomfortable for you, just a little bit, like you don't want to dive straight into the ocean, but maybe walk out onto the shore, feel the water on your feet, realize you're safe, and then maybe go a little bit closer or like further and have the water at your knees, and then, okay, I'm safe here. Wade out a little bit more, it's at your waist, okay, I'm safe. So it's just kind of taking gradual steps to realize like, oh, I can actually trust my body, I can swim. Instead of like, oh, no, I'm stuck here, I feel like I'm gonna drown, because that's really overwhelming. Some people are amazing and they do that overnight, and like bravo to you, but to the general public, I would recommend just starting out slow and seeing how it feels. And then by starting out slow, you might also be able to find where you need that support. Like, oh, I know how to honor my hunger and fullness, but I'm having trouble with breaking the pattern of emotional eating. Because I see clients for intuitive eating and they don't need help on all aspects of it, but it's just like specific ones. There's one client I saw and we started with emotional eating, and like she came back for a follow-up and she was like, actually that was literally it. Like I realized I just eat when I'm angry, so now I don't. And like I'm good with everything. And of course it's not going to be everyone, but just starting off with one or two things at a time might help you get there.
I feel like that's something that I'm lucky that I grew up in a household that didn't like force me to finish my food. We actually like didn't eat together. I kind of just like took my food to the room and that was it. There was no like conversation about like how much to eat, how much not to eat, anything like that. But I feel like I've become an emotional eater over the last year. I'll like takeout has become this thing where I'm just like, I'm super bummed. I'm just gonna order some food. It's like becomes
a
this
treat.
like ritual.
Yeah.
And it like makes me happy when it gets there. And I'm like, okay, that's the little bit of like happy juice that I
Yeah.
needed. And
Yeah.
it's like become a thing. It doesn't even have to start early on in your life because
Yeah.
literally this has developed over the last like year. And I'm like, okay, I really need to find a different way to find happiness.
Yeah.
This is getting a little toxic.
And a little expensive,
Yeah.
depending on where you get your
I know.
food from.
I'm like, I don't shop for clothes anymore. I just order takeout. So in my mind, I justify it.
That's a vibe.
I know.
I'm
I'm like, I do
definitely
that.
always like looking for healthy ways to change my relationship with food because I'm an emotional eater where it's like I eat when I'm sad, when I'm happy, when I'm indifferent, when I'm content. Like it's like an emotional thing. Like
Yeah.
I'm really happy. Oh, I'm gonna eat something that will make me even more, you know?
Even more
Or
happy,
oh,
yeah.
I'm like pissed off. Like I'm gonna eat something that'll make me feel better. Like
Yeah.
I have like this relationship with food where it's just always been there for me.
Mhm.
And like, yeah, I'm definitely trying to find like that healthy way
Yeah.
to, you know.
Find that balance again.
Yeah.
I would love something we've been talking about a lot lately, and like in our group chats and on the show and everything is like ex-vegans, like people who say that they were vegan for many, many years. They go back and like they always point to like very specific health issues. So it's usually like loss of menstruation, their hair is thinning, they're tired all the time, they're super bloated.
Their skin,
And
they say
their
they get
skin is
acne,
bad,
yeah.
and that's just I'm just so curious, like from a professional standpoint, like you as a dietitian, a registered dietitian, like somebody comes to you and is explaining these problems and saying it's all veganism's fault. Like, how do you approach something like that, and like what to you like stands out as like, you know, something that might be a source of symptoms like that?
Right. Try harder. Just kidding. I just like she was saying that and I was like, oh man, don't make the jokes. Make the jokes. I'm just like, yo, just try harder. Like do more research. But
Yeah.
in all seriousness, there are some conditions that are really hard, you know? And this is not to say that veganism can't solve them, but maybe they just didn't have the right support.
Yeah.
You know? Maybe they just didn't have faith in themselves. And I'm lucky enough that I've never gotten to that point where I've like, you know, lost 30 pounds because my body's not absorbing anything. But I can really understand, like having that compassion piece, like I can understand the desperation that people have when they're like, veganism just didn't work for me, blah, blah, blah. If someone is going through that right now, I think the first thing is like, don't be too hard on yourself. Whatever decision you make, like that's you and your body. Like only you and you alone will know what was the best step, right? But I also think it's unfair to say that it's veganism's fault because maybe your body was having some malabsorption issue due to something like in the past, or maybe like because you were eating a specific way while you were vegan, or maybe it's like during the time period you were vegan, you had some virus that like messed up your gut and you're trying to fix that or like have that in balance. And, you know, do whatever you need to do to get back to balance, but don't harp on veganism because it just didn't work for you.
Right.
Yeah. And what I hope for people who don't, like, who stop being vegan and then, you know, feel better, I hope that they find their way back to this lifestyle in a way that works for them. Maybe the no oil life is not the life for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe eating a lot of oil is also not for them too.
Yeah.
We're so different. But I think, especially with all the specialists and medical professionals that we have and like all the science that we have and products, and like we're all here to try to make that happen for other people because we know that it can happen. I think that it's worth giving it another try. And the thing about trying is like you're not committing to anything. You could just keep trying.
Yeah.
And that's what matters.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people are looking for something to blame. Stop.
Yes.
Beautifully said. With compassion too. Sometimes we have a hard time with that, so I'm glad you brought that to the table.
I'm like, they're all idiots. I hate them. Like,
From a professional standpoint, it's nice to hear you say that because I mean, you see a different aspect of it. We're seeing like the social media side of it. So of course, as content creators, we're like, you know, stop spreading misinformation. But then, you know, they're from a, you know, client perspective, like maybe these people are going through something that we just don't see, and like they're just trying to find an answer, and it makes them feel more at peace if they can blame veganism for it and then say that, oh, eating eggs and fish now is my cure-all and now I feel better miraculously.
Like, everyone should do it. Like I
Yeah.
also feel like that's wrong too.
Right.
Like, I'm very much like an anecdotal person. Like, this worked for me. This is the science for them, but this worked for me.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work for you, that's okay. It's also just like a big thing where I just don't want the blame.
Yeah.
So if you try it, like, I told you this was for me and not for you.
Yeah.
But there is a problem, in my opinion, when people come on and they're like, you have to eat eggs. It's like so much better for your body.
Right.
It's like, how do you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't
I'm
know
doing great without them. Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah. And for some people, maybe it is. Maybe in this lifetime you weren't really meant to be vegan, and who am I to take that away from your story?
Yeah.
But I think you can be.
Yeah.
I think you could try, but
Yeah.
you know, it's all up to you too.
Yeah.
What is like the one thing that you see with all of your clients that you're like, oh, like people are not eating enough of this, like as a whole? Like, what's like is it a certain like vegetables or a certain nutrient that you feel like people really need to be like, oh, this is like something that people need to hone in on and like not forget about? Like, is there anything like that?
Yes, well, I am biased because currently, so you know that I've talked about wanting to become a physician.
Mm-hmm.
I decided not to because I realized what I really wanted to learn was how to heal the body, but like in a language that I really vibe with. And so right now I'm studying Ayurveda, which is the world's oldest health system. It dates back to like 5,000 years ago. And it's the sister science of yoga. So it very much encompasses nutrition and lifestyle and herbs and like body therapies and exercise, yoga, meditation, and even like psychotherapy as well for healing the whole person. And so when I'm talking to clients, I feel like a big thing is that we eat too many raw foods. Like, I heard it, what is that?
Joy eats a lot of raw food.
Well, I'm on a raw cleanse to reset myself.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Until next Thursday.
Okay.
But yeah, that's
No judgment, no
Yeah.
judgment. I don't want you to think that I'm like talking about this and I'm like, I just feel like cooked food and like warm, like soupy foods isn't as popular, or even sometimes isn't like as talked up enough, because especially with like raw foodists and just vegans in general, the idea is that there are actually more nutrients in the living foods, but it's actually really hard to absorb what we can't break down. And so when foods are already like cooked and kind of broken down, we can absorb all the nutrients that are in there a lot better. And personally, so for me, I went through this phase of like wanting to gain a lot of weight to rebalance my hormones, and I had a lot of trouble because I started just eating a lot more of what I was already eating, but my gut couldn't handle it because it was a lot of like dry and raw, crunchy foods. And what I actually needed was like more like warm consistency, like warm bowls, oatmeal, not toast, things that could really like lubricate my insides and help me break it down and like digest a lot easier. And so kind of going back to your question about like the brittle hair and the nails and feeling really weak, the first step or protocol is like start introducing more warm things into your diet. So like I never drink cold drinks or like ice water. I eat salads, but like there's always going to be a dressing on it to kind of counter that cold dryness. And again, the idea is that when we eat food or like drink specific temperatures, like our body has to warm it up so that it can like be broken down and assimilated. So if the body doesn't have to work that hard to bring it all into like our cells and our blood vessels, then it's a lot less energy that we have to expend, and then we can use that energy to building more hair, to like having better memory and like a stronger immune system. And so I would say that like a lot of people, because I have like a lot of digestive issues as well, it's like, why don't you try eating like something warm instead of that cold crunchy salad every single day? It does feel good, especially on days like this.
When it's hot.
That's natural. Like it's our internal trying to balance out what's outside of us. But you know, like I used to eat smoothie bowls in the winter, and like I would wear like a blanket, and there was something in my body that was like, this is wrong. But like I wasn't listening to it. And so now it all makes sense. And I feel like strengthening digestion is actually a big tenet of Ayurveda as well. But strengthening your digestive system and really supporting it is like the key to strengthening everything else in your body.
Yeah. I love that. I actually did heal my gut through cooked food. So and I feel very passionately about it because and of course, you know, there's still times where like my digestion gets a little out of whack and things like that. But for the most part, like that was the biggest difference I had ever seen was through cooked food. So I agree, it's so underrated. But like you said, I think it's because we live in California, it's hot, and people are like, oh, salads, smoothies, like that's just kind of what we're drawn to. But I want to touch on your soul purpose coaching and like what you're doing and what's next for you. And yeah, so please share that with us.
So I am just an ever-evolving human being, as we all are, and I realized that like we can learn intuitive eating and we can learn how to treat our body well, but like for why? Like for what? You know? And I actually got into trying to figure out like, okay, what is it that's like really my purpose? What am I here for when I was going through this existential crisis of going to like med school or learning Ayurveda? And I realized like, it's the same thing. It just depends on how I want to live it, right? Because I realized my purpose is to help other people heal themselves. I can't heal you. You guys just do that for yourselves.
Right.
And like being able to teach that is really what I find is so like that's what makes my life so fiery. Like I'm excited about every day, and I wanted to learn how to do that and like open that up for other people and help them use their purpose as a modality of eating better, of making better choices, of allowing themselves to not be on a diet and like making peace with what their body looks like. Because once we can realize or like find out, okay, this is actually like the big thing that I'm here for, this body is just a vessel for me to be able to do that. And it's important for me to keep it healthy, but I don't need to obsess over it, like, because I really just want to make music or like make art to make life more beautiful, or be on a talk show and share and highlight other creators and other professionals and people in like the vegan space. Like that's a purpose in and of itself. But how can we do that if we don't have a healthy body? And so I started to lean more into that, and that is I guess it's a service that I provide, but it's more so just conversation and really holding people in a container and helping them find what that is, realize or know what's holding them back from actually doing it, and like being their hype woman to really help them do it.
Wow. I love that, because I feel like we all know somebody who's like super, super talented, could be like excelling in something, but there's something holding them back. They just need like a little push. They need someone to like see what the world sees in them and like guide them in that direction.
So. Everybody needs like their little
hype woman.
Totally.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we will definitely link all of her social media in the description box down below. I mean, you're all over the place. You're on Instagram, you're on YouTube. She's got her website for her dietitian. Like, I mean, we got links galore for you. So please, please, please go see Amanda. Go follow her. Give her some love. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for being
great.
Yeah, we would love to have you come back. I mean, I know we have a million questions to ask you that we can
I'm
get
an open
to.
book. I didn't realize this was already like 40 minutes.
I know. It goes
What's
fast.
happening today? Like, because we're just like so into the conversation, we don't realize how much time has passed.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have a lot to learn from you. I have a lot of internal work to do. Now I have to give up my ice water too, so I'm going through a lot right now.
Slowly.
Yes.
Now I want like a warm soup. Like
I
want like a warm, like blended up soup.
Yes.
Like carrot.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, I forgot to ask you our fun
so
question.
Oh,
So what's your? Oh, you want to ask her?
Okay, so if you were to pick one meal to eat for the rest of your life, what would that be?
Oh my god, so like literally the opposite of what I've told you guys. So, like, an acai bowl.
Are you serious? That's your favorite thing to eat? You posted the most beautiful one the other day, and I was like, I'm driving to get that.
All the time. Okay, but like for the summer, right? 'Cause,
Right.
You know, there's seasons.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I'm being mindful, if it's really hot, like a nice acai bowl with like great granola toppings and olive fruit. But if it's in the winter, just like colder times, it's so vague, but like just like a basics bowl. Have you guys been to Real Food Day?
Yes.
Yes.
You know they have like the basics where you can just like put things together. So basically some iteration of that, like a bomb sauce. I've been really obsessed with bitchin sauce right now.
Oh yeah.
Like
Love bitchin
all
sauce.
the different flavors. So something like that. I could eat that. I literally eat that every night because there's so many different ways.
Yeah.
There's so many different things you can use that bitchin sauce for too.
Totally.
Love that.
Yeah.
Great answers. Yeah. I mean, go follow her just to see her beautiful acai bowls that she eats, because she posted one and I was like, I'll drive to the Inland Empire for that. Yeah.
I'll meet you there. I will meet you there.
Okay, let's do it. So yes, okay, definitely follow her. Make sure you guys comment down below if you would like to see her come back. Comment any questions you have for her. I feel like she's a wealth of knowledge and we should pressure her to come back.
Yeah.
I don't need pressure. I'm ready.
Yay!
Make sure you guys give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to our channel. Follow our individual social medias. Follow The Vegan View on TikTok and Instagram. Subscribe to our Facebook page, and we'll see you next week for another episode.
Bye.